Smoking makes your teeth yellow, gives you bad breath, and can even kill you. And if you're pregnant or have small children, you're putting them at risk too. Remember, smoking is not safe, and so too second-hand smoke. That was a public service announcement brought to you by i95.5 FM.
Take 2, Sunday, Edition 2 with Dominic and Roger. The best in weekend talk, the best in weekend news. Take 2, Sunday, Edition 2 with Dominic Kaliprasad and Roger Lee. Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. on the most influential name in radio, i95.5 FM.
And welcome once again to i95.5 FM. Another beautiful Sunday here in Trinidad and Tobago, on a day to be celebrated. Many thanks to those who went before us, Gary and Natalie and Quasi and the rest of the team. And of course, now it's the turn of Take 2, the second edition. Good afternoon, Dominic Kaliprasad.
Good afternoon, Roger. Nice sunny day for the Divali.
Oh, a bright, cheerful day.
Let's hope the rain doesn't come and put out all the days. The weather is pretty unpredictable.
Yeah, and the last couple of years there may have been rain on. There were rainy days.
So I guess your midday luncheon is already taken care of, and so.
This evening by my friend. Currently Savannah Road.
Well, it is a time of celebration for Hindu community, and the nation joins in the celebration. Food remains food is always an integral part of celebration in many cultures. Today, I want to treat it as a sort of reflection on part of the culture. You know, when Indian indented laborers came to the Caribbean, they brought with them their unique culture, including the Hindustani language. And Hindustani is probably still spoken by the very elderly descendants of the indented laborers. But according to linguist Dr. Visham Bhimull, with the independence movement in India and partition, many changes took place, including ideologies of religion, politics, society, and even the linguistic standard of Hindustani. He says that what is now modern standard Hindi was not necessarily the standard Hindustani during the pre-partition indentureship period. However, if one is to aspire towards accessing the Hindustani language today as an element of Indian cultural identity in Trinidad, he says, one would only be able to learn modern standard Hindi and not the Hindustani spoken by the indented laborers of their descendants. Dr. Bhimull, who really is a primary care physician, has a keen interest in North Indian languages with a focus on Trinidad Hindustani, and has studied Hindi, Sanskrit, Bhojpuri, even Spanish, French, and Dutch. That's right, yeah. Well, as you heard, Dr. Bhimull, who is president of the Caribbean Hindustani and vice president of the Hindi Foundation of Trinidad, is with us today to discuss, among other things, Hindustani in the Trinidad context and perhaps the role of modern standard Hindi within the Indian diaspora of Trinidad. Welcome.
धन्यवाद ये मौका देने के लिए आज यहाँ होना और शुभ दिवाली सभी को. So thanks for the opportunity for having me here, and happy Diwali to everyone.
So tell me, we have inherited Hindi.
Yeah.
But do the speakers of Hindi in Trinidad primarily speak Hindi, or is Bhojpuri a Trinidad folk?
When you say speakers of Hindustani, you have to understand that that's different communities, because you have the NRI population, non-resident Indians, who would have come to Trinidad after the period of indentureship and independence of India. And then you also have the descendants of the indentured laborers called people of Indian origin. In Trinidad and Tobago,
Okay. Let me get that clear, especially for the listeners. You are categorizing the Indians in Trinidad into two categories. One is the descendants of indentured laborers; those were people who were born in Trinidad.
Right.
And then there are the non-resident Indians.
They were born in India and they would have come for business or work or whatever it may be.
And that's a significant size?
Yeah, I think so, because with respect to modern standard Hindi, I think we have a significant population, NRI population, where we could say to some extent that modern standard Hindi is spoken in Trinidad.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the Trinidad context, people of Indian origin, those descended from indentured laborers, I usually would do interviews with some of my patients who are diabetic, hypertensive, over 85, and of East Indian or persons of Indian origin. And you tend to find that age group would tend to know about Trinidad Bhojpuri, Trinidad Hindustani, or be able to speak it. Younger than that, no. So the language or languages brought by the indentured laborers in Trinidad no longer is spoken. But Caribbean Hindustani, just like, because I know you're going to have a talk about Patois, so I'll put it in that context. Antillean Creole.
Yes, because later on after this interview, we will be speaking to Dr. Joanne Ferreira about Creole and Patois.
Right. So that Trinidad Patois belongs to the Antillean Creole language. So that in the Lesser Antilles and all the way to French Guyana, it's the same language, but just they have their different identities based on the geography there. So Caribbean Hindustani is like that, because the majority of indentured laborers came from a particular linguistic area in India to the Caribbean, so that it formed basically the same language, which is termed Caribbean Hindustani. And that will be Trinidad Bhojpuri, Guyanese Bhojpuri, and Suriname. In Suriname, that's what they call it. And it's mutually intelligible, essentially the same language. The Caribbean Hindustani language is still spoken in Suriname today by most of the persons of Indian origin in Suriname and in the Netherlands, but in Trinidad and Guyana, no. And there are multiple reasons for that. In the introduction, you had said that, which I had written, is that what is modern standard Hindi is not necessarily the Caribbean Hindustani, which was brought by indentured laborers. So it's very important to note the literary period during indentureship as opposed to today, as well as the regions from which they would have come. So when you look at Caribbean Hindustani, the three major vernaculars I mentioned, it actually belongs to an older era in pre-partition India, as opposed to modern standard Hindi. So it's like modern standard Hindi maybe like Spanish is to Portuguese, Caribbean Hindustani is to modern standard Hindi. But a Portuguese speaker going to Spain could understand 80% of a Spanish conversation, because they're very much closely related. In the same way, Hindi speaker from India, let's say NRI, would understand bits of what might be an elderly person in Trinidad speaking Trinidad Bhojpuri might speak, not get it most, and vice versa. So they would understand to some extent, but the languages are separate.
Now, what are some familiar words that we use in our Trinidad English?
Well,
in our
English,
Tringlish that includes Hindi.
So since we're talking about languages, Trinidad English Creole, right? Because we are a diagnosis here. We speak
absolutely
vacillate between standard Trinidad English as well as Trinidad English Creole, which is a separate language. So remnants of what you'd find from the Hindustani that was spoken by indentured laborers that was passed down to the descendants now would be items of food in the category of nouns. So roti, chokha, tarkari, clothing, dhoti, sari, and all these things. But we also have maintenance of some of the verbs. Yeah. So I would grow up with the expression manje di bartan. Manje means to wash, scrub or scour. Bartan means wares, to wash the wares essentially.
Oh, okay.
Right? Chadhawe jal, which most persons of Indian origin who belong to the Hindu religion would know that's offering water in the morning to the Shivlinga at the Jandi. So certain aspects of daily life that was practiced by indentured laborers and still practiced today, it within the home space or the intimacy of the family, we still use expressions that is Hindustani.
Now, the indentured laborers would have been uneducated and unschooled immigrants whose mastery of the language may not have been the best. So they may have even come with a form or dialect.
Okay, according to Dr. Peggy Mohan, her thesis was Trinidad Bhojpuri, a morphological study. In the introduction, she had stated they were vernaculars of Bhojpuri. So I'll kind of create a mental picture of the geographical area. A lot in India has changed, even the borders of the districts, right? So what is Bihar today, it was not Bihar back then. Jharkhand, which is south of Bihar now, was part of Bihar, and then Uttar Pradesh. So that if you look at Patna, all the way up to Patna is in the east, all the way up to Basti and Chota Nagpur in Jharkhand, that triangle defines the area from where the majority of indentured laborers came. Now, the thing is, you have to look at what is the critical mass. In other words, which one of the languages were most of the vernaculars were from. Because Punjabi came, just a few people. What is modern standard Hindi or Khari Boli, or the dialect spoken in Delhi, also came. Bengali came. Tamil came because in the earlier part there were people from modern day Tamil Nadu, Madras as well. We also have Tamil words in our Hindustani. But 85 to 90% came from that essential triangle. So that formed the critical mass of Bhojpuri, the Bhojpuri speaking area in India. So, and then looking at it from my own personal experience, interacting with people from that region and speaking the language my grandmother would speak, they would understand completely. But if you were to speak to NRI based in Delhi or somewhere else, they may not necessarily understand it. And looking at the grammatical structure, it is essentially Bhojpuri, that Trinidad Hindustani.
Yeah, because you flit between describing it as Hindustani and Bhojpuri. Which is which, and what's the difference?
Okay, so again, the definition of Hindustani changes with pre-partition and inter-partition. What we know as modern standard Hindi during indentureship was not really fully formed authoritative language at that point in time. It's kind of like the Quebec situation, where when they came from the southern part of France and went to Quebec in Canada, that southern vernacular French was the standard. After the French Revolution, Parisian French then became, so that what remains in Quebec was that southern vernacular, which was the former standard. So the same exact thing.
So
with
that speaks to power relations.
Language is always an element of politics, power, and economy. You have to understand that, and even this story tells of that. So during the time of indentureship, the standard wasn't modern standard Hindi. It was Braj Bhasha, that's poems written, or examples of poetry written by Mirabai and Surdas. And then there was the Ramcharitramanas, which Tulsidas wrote in Awadhi. Those were the two literary standards. So that the interviews I do with old people, whenever they do a recital or some verse or whatever it is in those languages, not in the language with the spoken Bhojpuri. After partition and the independence movement in India, then modern standard Hindi or Khari Boli, Khari Boli is a dialect spoken in Delhi. That became modern standard Hindi. Also, the script changed because now Hindi, as we know, written in Devanagari script. Everybody knows it. Prior to independence, it was written in Nastaliq or Urdu or Arabic script. All official documents. It's only changed after partition. The indentured laborers, and Dr. Peggy Mohan, because her book is going to be launched, the ones who could write, or the persons who were educated in Hindustani, would have written in the Kaiti script, which is a separate script that is pre-partition. Going back to your point, since Hindi wasn't there, the modern definition of what Hindustani is Hindustani is one language that exists between two standards, Urdu and Hindi. Just like English exists between British English and American English, two standards. But based in that Khari Boli. Prior to that Khari Boli was known, and Hindi was not even used to name the language. It was Hindustani. So that if you spoke Bhojpuri, that's Hindustani. If you spoke Gujarati, that's Hindustani. Hindustani actually means Gujarat is a place, Gujarati is the language of that place. Hindustan is a place, Hindustani is the language of that place. And by that time, when the British were there, I remember Gerson was writing the Linguistic Survey of India. Only after that was published, then it was realized that most of the languages or the vernaculars per se then in northern India were not truly just vernaculars of one language called Hindustani. It was actually separate languages, like you would have Romance languages in Europe. Because if you look at India itself, language is just one example. It is a Europe. It is defined by kingdoms. Just like the Frankish kingdom, where Frankish Latin was spoken, gave rise to French, Hispanic Latin, and so on. The vernaculars of Sanskrit was spoken in different kingdoms in India. There was a major Eastern and Western kingdom. Bhojpuri came from that vernacular of Sanskrit, and Hindi came from the Western kingdom.
What is, as a child, I remember hearing, I don't know if it was lumped together, sometimes you just throw everything into one to make it easy to remember and so on, but Hindi was the term I remember hearing as a child growing up as the language that was, let's say, loosely spoken. What was the difference between Hindi and Hindustani or any of the other languages? Okay,
so when you say Hindustani, it still goes back to that pre-partition concept of the Hindi belt. So all the languages spoken in that belt from Rajasthan all the way to Bihar, which is Bhojpuri is included, would be seen as vernaculars of Khari Boli. But that's not true. Again, we come to the political definition. Khari Boli before 1800 had no written literature, which is modern standard Hindi. But there was written literature in Awadhi, as I said, which is the Ramcharitramanas. Kabir Das wrote in Bhojpuri, and Mira Ansur wrote in Braj Bhasha. But there was no literature written in modern standard Hindi. It was only after the British conquered India and set up the Fort William College in Calcutta that they started influencing politically what was the standard, which eventually became Khari Boli, or the vernacular in Delhi today.
Now, you mentioned earlier that language is highly influenced by what? Politics, power?
Economics, and basically societal factors.
Economics, politics, and societal factors. In theory, if Trinidad were to be dominated then by, let's say, an Indian culture, is that likely to influence our language?
Yeah, obviously it would, because if you have that political influence. If you look at Mauritius today, Mauritius, the population of East Indians or persons of Indian origin is the most in the country, as well as how close they are to India, so the influence of India itself. You would find that so as in Trinidad we have Spanish and French at school. You could do it up to secondary level. In Mauritius they have French because they speak French, as well as Hindi, so that's an option. Looking at it from that perspective, the political will could be created, yes, but also you have to remember they're so close to India that business is there, and that's commerce. That's something that also pushes languages. So for a Mauritian person to learn Hindi, it augurs well in the job, in the career arena, to have a job in India or be involved in any sort of trade with that country.
So should Hindi or Bhojpuri be taught in schools in Trinidad?
I learned Trinidad Patois about 3 years ago, no, more than that, 5 years. And I saw it as empowering myself in a Trinidad identity, because the Trinidad English Creole I speak gets its grammar from that. Seeing that, yes, there's a lot of Trinidad English Creole grammar that comes from Bhojpuri. Just like I learned Patois. And to understand my identity as a Trinidadian, I think it will be essential and augur well for any Trinidadian to learn Bhojpuri. The Lloyd Best Institute actually does Bhojpuri classes now. I teach it on a Wednesday and a Saturday. So they have 2 identity languages offered to the population to learn more about being Trinidadian and be empowered in identity. They offer Patois and now Trinidad Bhojpuri. So yes, Trinidad Bhojpuri, that's one aspect, but you also need to embrace other aspects of being Trinidadian.
How many languages are recorded being spoken across India?
Well over 400. But it's continuing to be evolved because again the politics and as well the issue of societal values come in. Once Bhojpuri was seen as a vernacular and still is seen, but is a separate language. After that publication of the Linguistic Survey of India, you found that now people found renewed sense of uniqueness in their identity by saying, no, well, we don't speak Hindi, we speak Rajasthani. And Rajasthani is, in fact, a separate language. What also defines what is a standard is literature that it is recorded in, as well as the daily speech of people. So there's this politically, you could actually shroud the eyes over the populace to make them seem separate or the same. I think a lot of politicians internationally utilize that to tell people who they are. Even from a linguistic standpoint, to either divide or unite people.
You know, in my childhood household, where Patois was spoken, my mother would speak with her friends and relatives in Patois so that the children would understand what they were saying. Does that happen in Indian households?
Yeah, when I had joined the Patois classes at Lloyd Bess, I realized that the stories were the same. Even when I do my interviews now with old people in Trinidad Bhojpuri, a lot of times it comes up, well, yes, the old people used to speak in Trinidad Bhojpuri when they don't want the younger ones to understand. That was the same exact story in the Patois household. So it seems to be something common where an identity language is being lost to now move up the social ladder by learning what the status quo language is.
Is there like an alphabet as we know it in English?
Okay, you have to understand all languages existed in the spoken form before it was ever written. Even writing came long after language existed. So that any language could be written in any script. In the case of where the sounds are missing, you could always substitute, and this happened with the language. All the scripts in India came from the Brahmi script. The Brahmi script is seen written on the Ashokan scrolls and the Kingdom scrolls. So
what period are they?
This would have been prior to the Mughal invasion. This was during the time of Ashoka. The date slipped me at this point in time. But we're talking about even Gautama Buddha, because he had written in Pali. In India, from Brahm, came multiple scripts. So prior to the Mughal invasion of India, there were multitude of scripts available to write that form of Prakrit, which was the earlier form before it became Hindi Hindustani. And it would again depend on the politics. When indentured laborers came to Trinidad, this was short, just as Khariboli or modern standard Hindi started to move up the ladder. The modern day Hindi script, which is the Devanagari script, was not the standard script, it was Kaiti. So most of the indentured laborers who could have written, or they were scribes, they would have written in the Kaiti script. Right? It's also derived from. Gujarati is written as well in Kaiti, then you have the Gurumukhi script, which Punjabi is written in the Bengali script, but all came from the same one script. Yes, there's an alphabet. The alphabet for all, because the sound system in all the languages, especially northern ones in India, are set based on the grammarians from Sanskrit, so that the alphabet is organized according to the points of articulation. So that the first set of letters you have in the Hindustani, and I say Hindustani because I want to include all the others apart from modern standard Hindi, is K, K, G, K, Ng. So you realize you're using the back of your tongue and the soft palate for all those articulations. So every row you go to is a different point of articulation. So the alphabet itself augurs well for pronunciation. Since I learned to read and write Hindi when I was 11, just after writing Common Entrance. And because of that, whenever I would write in Hindustani, I would write it in Devanagari script because it's easier. Why? Because it's phonetic. It's not like English or French or even Dutch. Three other languages I speak. because it's as you sound it out, the exact letter is there. So it's completely phonetic. So if you know the alphabet, then when you see it in script, unlike an English speaker who would say leisure or leisure, or their variants in how you pronounce it, there is some sort of standard with respect to at least the articulation point in Hindustani.
In terms of the language being saved, now, the Hindu religion is a very resilient religion in Trinidad and Tobago.
Hindu religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pushing forward, meaning generation to generation. The now generation, based on my observations, seem to be holding firm to it. Is the language being saved in that way? Are they passing it on?
No. The thing is that we shouldn't limit ourselves to religion when we speak about language. Right? Okay.
I'm seeing it as a vehicle. You could
It
use
is a vehicle,
Yeah.
actually, because we spoke about the Ramcharitamanas. That is a scripture, or one of the major scriptures that was brought by Indian deliverers, written in Awadhi, right? And it is recited in the mandirs and whenever they have satsang. And so, but you also have to know that the younger population, Hindu or non-Hindu, Muslim or even Christian, of Indian origin, gravitate towards these Bollywood movies. And they sing the songs. They sing the words perfectly, but still don't understand it. I think that's a vehicle. Because when you look at the Vedas themselves, the Vedas were composed before writing. So you had schools that would recite over and over and over the Vedas, even up to the day. But even though it would have meant something to the ones reciting initially, coming down, they wouldn't understand, but they just know it and they know the exact pronunciation. I think that's a starting point. Religion, yes, is one, I think, but we have to look at a multifaceted way.
The education system, for sure.
Exactly. Now, in the primary school education system, I know Spanish is now being taught. But that is because it is catered not for Spanish, but they call it heritage languages. So in that curriculum of the primary school, it's stated Hindi, Patois, French, Yoruba, Spanish, and so on. So, I mean, that to me, that is just the framework. There's nothing beyond that. They worked for the Spanish, because I know Dr. Modi Kublal Singh, she recently came out with textbooks for Spanish in primary schools.
Well, there seems to be a geographical and economic reason for heavy focus on Spanish. We're next to Latin America. There are perhaps employment and investment opportunities and so on. Hindustani seems a bit far away.
I don't think so. Why? Is that you have to realize that language forms different aspects of people's lives. English, we learn because we move up the social ladder. Being in a colonial system, it was the way forward. But we spoke of Patois. That is an identity language, and I think we need to learn it. Reason being is that there are so much expressions we have in our Trinidad English Creole that could only be explained through understanding a French Creole culture. So in the same way, another half of the population being of East Indian origin and who have also influenced what is the identity of Trinbagonian, it will augur well. You have to understand that this is not like Spanish and French. I learned Spanish and French. Spanish because it was at school. French because I go to Guadeloupe and Martinique often because of the diaspora there as well as literature. And I also learned Dutch because I go to Suriname and the Netherlands again for search of the language. But Patois and Hindustani/Bhojpuri is not more of a language to attain upward social mobility, but more to be empowered in one's identity. Once I remember, there was a friend of mine who posted on Facebook, well, he has now seen the need to embrace his identity of being a person of Indian origin. And I said, okay, so if you take that away, what will exist? You cannot be Caribbean or a Caribbean identity without that aspect of your Indo-Caribbean, the Indian aspect of it. I was brought up in a Hindu home. Like
Indian or African or Chinese.
Yeah, but from his context, right? I mean, it doesn't apply to only people of Indian origin. Everybody else, whether you're French Creole or you're Chinese. If you take that away, then what is just Caribbean? We're not indigenous people. So that mix of French Creole, Chinese, Syrian, and everything in there.
Well, I guess in this case, this person may have thought that he was being taught that he was exclusively Indian and not Indian in a Caribbean context.
Again, and then we come back to the education system, because I always look at it. It is not culturally sensitive to any aspect of Trinidadian identity. It's still steeped in colonialism, I think, and it still gives an inferiority complex to everybody in Trinidad, no matter which ethnicity you might belong to. And we need to look at it. I think the Emancipation Support Committee with the Kendra, they had a meeting once and they looked at that. With regard to how what is taught in schools and how does it help a Trinidadian child to embrace their identity. It doesn't. You still see a colonial remnant in that education system.
Now, if I had an interest in learning, I'm still not sure what word to use, Bhojpuri or Hindi or Hindustani. But let me, for the sake of it, say Hindustani. Or let me say Bhojpuri. If I were to approach, I want to learn it, what are 3 common phrases that, let's say, the listener might want to use in everyday life in Trinidad? Like, hello, my name is Visham. How do you say that?
So, Mera naam Visham hai, right? Mera is my. Naam is name. It's in the European.
Mera naam
Visham hai. Right? My name is Visham. And then you ask, well, aapka naam kya hai? But before you ask someone their name, you have to say, well, good day, right? So, well, I mean, in Trinidad, it's Sitaram. Internationally, it's Namaste. You could also say Assalamu alaikum. Right? That's in Urdu. Again, it tells of the different orientation.
Are those greetings or prayers?
Whenever you look at any form of greeting, even in the English language, they stem to some sort of recognizing God in an individual.
Gotcha.
So that even if we look at hello and goodbye, I could go back to the etymology, but not yet do that. It actually goes to saying someone, well, God be with you.
Yes.
Right? So it just is not unique to Hindi or Urdu, right? Yeah. But there are different ways, because you could be a Sikh and you could say Sat Sri Akal.
So to say hello, you can say Sitaram, or you can say
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
But in this modern era, in India itself, hello is okay.
Right.
It is also an imported expression, just like Assalamu alaikum. So if you go to India and you want to say just hi, hello, that's fine. You don't have to say.
But if you say Assalamu alaikum, does it associate you with a religion?
It does associate you with a religion, but that's an important aspect of the Indian identity. Yeah, it will say you offer Islamic orientation, but there's nothing wrong with a Hindu giving that response or a Muslim vice versa, which I see it doesn't really make a difference, but it tells of the origins of the language itself.
I remember on television back in the day, Pat Matura always opened this program saying Sitaram, Sitaram.
Sitaram goes back to where we come from in India. In the Bhojpuri speaking area, that is the general way to greet and say hello for Hindus. Yeah, Namaste only came afterwards. It is a more general or formal way of greeting.
So Namaste is Hindi?
Yeah, it's Hindi.
Associated
I need to explain this, because
Yeah.
2 things I need to explain here. One is that if you have to learn Trinidad Hindustani and modern standard Hindi, is 2 separate languages, so you'd have to go through different avenues. We could always go after where you want to learn, which one we could go to. But let's go to English. English is 40% French and 40% Dutch, German, right? The same exact thing happened with Hindi. It meshed 2 languages together, the conqueror and the conquered, so that when the Mughals invaded India, the language spoken prior to that was what we call upper branch or Prakrit, or vernaculars of Sanskrit, and then Persian came with the Mughal invaders, just like the Battle of Hastings, where Norman French was brought into England. The same thing happened, so that the vocabulary of the Hindustani/Hindi language essentially has half Persian and half Sanskrit. So that Namaste comes from Sanskrit. Right? It actually, Namas means to bow in Sanskrit. Namaste is I bow to you, which is the conjugation of the verb. But again, just like in English, where we borrow Latin phrases already conjugated, it stays like that. It stays like that in the same way. It literally means I bow to the divinity in you. But we use it in the same context as just hello. So you usually just translate it as that.
Is there a social status associated with the nature or skill of Hindustani that you speak?
Yes. Because Bhojpuri is still not seen as authoritative as modern standard Hindi, despite being the fact of greater antiquity. It's just like Trinidad English Creole and Standard English. Even though Trinidad English Creole is a Creole, Bhojpuri is not a Creole. It actually came from an earlier version, but all languages fit themselves into some sort of status within our population. If you speak, okay, so if I would have to do a speech in Hindustani, it would be in modern standard Hindi on a podium, right? Even the Hindi I speak wouldn't be the everyday Hindi that you'd use. It's just like in English. When you go up to a podium, you'd use more French words as opposed to more Anglo-Saxon words. So that I will use more Sanskrit words. Everyday Hindi, I use more Perso-Arabic words. So the word...
Well, it's like when you speak English,
Yes.
in a formal setting, you use a standard English. On the street, you'd use
the thing is,
Trinidadian English.
when you speak formal English, you use more French words.
Yes.
When you speak everyday English or colloquial English, you use more Anglo-Saxon words. So think of it like this. You go to the Shogunas market, you say, I want to buy this. You wouldn't say, I want to purchase this. Purchase comes from French. Buy comes from Anglo-Saxon. So the same exact thing occurs in Hindi where my own experience in speaking it, I would, on a daily basis, if you speak everyday Hindi, you use more Perso-Arabic words. But if I were to, say, do a speech at the High Commission's residence, High Commission of India, I would use more Sanskrit words. But again, that's association with the emotions you have with forms of expression.
So, people, just as we in Trinidad are, I would say, multilingual. We speak a Creole, we speak a Trinidad.
It's a
English,
diglossia, by
right?
definition.
Is the average person is there a parallel average person in India who speaks multiple Indian languages?
Well, the average person in India would speak, more than just Hindi. They speak their local tongue from their region, and then they would speak modern standard Hindi. Actually, the average person, educated or, let's say middle class person, would speak English, Hindi, and their regional language. So usually it would be about...
So what is taught in schools?
Hindi, modern standard Hindi. You would learn your regional language at home. So you'd grow up, that would be your first language.
Yeah.
Yes,
but they also teach in English, don't they?
Yeah, English as well. Yeah, because that's the official language in India. All administration is done in both English and Hindi.
So yes, let's teach the listeners some phrases with which they might...
Nahi. No.
Nahi, what does that mean?
No.
Sorry.
I'm trying to find out if it's authentic.
What is an authentic no?
Okay.
What is yes, by the way? I've heard nahi a million times. Ha.
But it's nasal. You see the nose, but the thing is...
Use English letters to spell that, can you? H-A?
Okay, so in French you have B-I-E-N. You don't pronounce the N, but you represent the N. So you don't say bien. In Spanish you say bien. So in Hindi I'll put H-A-A for a long A and an N to the end. But it's like in French, so it would be han. It would be han.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
It's nasal. And there's a lot...
Oh, so when you hear it to the English A, it probably sounds like you're saying, huh?
With a longer
But
A.
in fact saying,
with a longer
huh.
A, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, but huh means different to ha. Huh probably means, what are you saying?
But again, it's the same nasal as you
Gotcha,
say.
gotcha, yes.
Yeah. We went through Namaste, which is hello or Sitaram, and then to ask how are you, aap kaise hai?
Aap kaise hai?
Aap kaise hai? And then if you want to say fine, you say main theek hu. Theek. Alright, let me give you a easy word. Use acha. Everybody knows that one. Acha means good. Well. Yeah. Main acha hu. Right?
Okay. How do you avoid approaching the pronunciation not with an English approach? Like you're saying, what was the word you just said?
Acha.
Acha.
Yeah,
Okay,
acha.
I'm saying acha, which is obviously wrong.
Acha.
Acha.
The thing is, from my method of learning languages, pronunciation could always come after once you're understood. The more important thing about a language and to become conversant in it is that one, don't be shy to speak it if you mispronounce a word or use bad grammar. The point is of a language is to communicate and get your ideas across, even if it is bad grammar. So one thing I notice is that English speakers do want to learn other languages when other People who speak other languages have to learn English because it moves up the social ladder. Everybody in Europe speaks English, in France, in Netherlands, and so on.
Well, it's now the common language of the world.
But that's why.
Okay, gotcha.
If it is a source of moving up the social ladder or survival, you'll have to learn it. But it's not a matter of, well, I don't want to learn that. An English speaker has linguistically achieved that. In other words, you just need English to move up in the world, wherever it is. You don't need French, unless you go to France and work in their system, which is only a few. So that I find that English speakers, for that reason, don't, or they find it difficult to try to learn a language. My thing is to learn from listening, because I speak French, Dutch, Patwa, Bhojpuri, and Hindi. And my style of learning is more to hear and repeat, so that it might be difficult at first, but once that's the other thing, becoming conversant in a language, is that you have to try as much as possible on a daily basis to interact at least an hour, so that you only become fluent in a language when you start thinking in a language.
So take this opportunity in Hindustani. Should I say Hindustani or Bhojpuri?
No, if you say Hindustani, or if you say Bhojpuri, I'll speak in Bhojpuri. If you say Hindi, I'll speak in Hindi.
And the commonly spoken language in Trinidad is Bhojpuri.
Yeah,
okay. Okay, so in Bhojpuri, invite the viewers to call in, the listeners to call in and ask you a question about the language.
तो अभी फोन करो स्टेशन पे और कुछ बातचीत करे हिंदुस्तानी में.
Roger,
and for those of you who didn't understand, he's asking you all to call.
Roger, translate.
622-3937. English. 622.
Well, we should have international Surinamese callers too. That would be great.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, I want to correct something. I'm not a linguist. I am a linguist enthusiast, but MBBS doctor.
Okay, good. So how did you become this Caribbean Hindustani president and vice president of the Hindi Needy Foundation when you're a general practitioner and a language enthusiast?
Okay, I grew up with my grandparents, maternal grandparents. That's Nana, Nani, right? So we learned that.
Thanks to Sundar.
Yeah, so they spoke Bhojpuri on a daily basis. It was a big part of my identity growing up. I went to Presbyterian school after that. So there was less Hindustani being encountered and more English, right? At that point, I don't know, it's just something within me, maybe unique to me, because nobody else in my family, my age, speaks Hindi or Hindustani. As a matter of fact, no person of Indian origin in Trinidad speaks Hindi or Hindustani. Maybe Hindi, not Hindustani, or Bhojpuri. So I remember I went to Hillview College. They did a lot of things like Indian Rivalry and Diwali. And because I came, well, my mom's family, my uncle was a Pandit, so he taught me at age 11 to read and write in Hindi. So I take on those responsibility of writing stuff for like artifacts for the library in the Devanagari and transliteration and translating it. It was after starting secondary and primary school and going to university and moving out of that protection of my grandparents. I just felt an inward calling to do something. One, I learned Hindi in university up to advanced level. And then after that started pursuing Bhojpuri on my own, because you can't learn Bhojpuri. I had to basically look for certain things to put it together, but I always felt that there was a void or a vacuum within the East Indian population in Trinidad with that aspect of language, as I am sure a lot of people saw at Patwa as well, because I had a desire to learn Patwa once and I did it. So it's not even to just Hindustani, it was just all different aspects of being Trinidadian. And when you have a world of globalization and American culture, westernized culture, I didn't grow up being that. So in a sense it was out of the element, but my personal thing is to be different from the rest. As a Trinidadian, I speak 5 languages. That's not typical Trinidadian.
Yeah, so being a Trinidadian who speaks 5 languages and versed in Hindustani, and as you said, most Trinidadians don't speak Hindustani.
Yeah.
Right, they speak Bhojpuri.
Well, the ones who speak.
The ones who speak. Did you find that the wider Trinidadian community embraced you doing so, or were you rejected in some quarters, or what was the experience like?
It was actually very welcoming to have patients seeing a young doctor, young Indo-Trinidadian speaking Hindustani was amazement to them. It felt closer, yeah. Within the language in general in Trinidad is always an interest. Oh, that's fascinating, you speak French. But an English speaker wouldn't go further. And the typical Indo-Trinidadian is an English speaker. So it's like that, but they always look at me with fascination. They always look at me and wanting to learn. So a lot of times people come to me and say, what you doing here is what we needed someone to do with Caribbean Hindustani. Because in Caribbean Hindustani, what I do is from my interviews, I would take elements of that to put as postings to kind of learn the language.
For the benefit of the listener, Caribbean Hindustani is what kind of organization?
Caribbean Hindustani is a registered organization I set up. It is a Facebook page. The website will be out. But it focuses specifically on Indo-Caribbean culture, the uniqueness of Indo-Caribbean culture, and more so the language and expression. Because as I explained, it's different from Hindi. I remember, and I'll give you this story. Yeah, this would explain the emotion that goes with it. Now, Bharat is the word for India in modern standard Hindi, right? So a lot of people who learn Hindi now and don't speak the language of their grandparents would say, well, they actually misquote them and say, well, they used to say Bharat. But when I do the interviews, the old people say Muluk. Muluk is an Arabic word which means motherland that eventually became to mean India. So that when I say that now to these people, they're like, but that is the word they used to use. And then they feel some sort of now Bharat not being authentic and Muluk being the authentic word.
Bharat as in Vasant Bharat?
Okay,
or is it a different Bharat?
No, the same is correct. So
what does Bharat mean?
Bharat means India. That's the modern standard Hindi word.
Is that the same spelling?
B-H-A-R-A-T, yeah.
It means what?
It means India.
India.
Yeah, it's a Hindi word for India.
Oh.
Right?
So Rhoda Bharat is Rhoda India.
Well, I don't know if...
And Vasant Bharat is Vasant India.
Well, Bharat actually is a clan name from the Vedas.
Okay.
And the government or politics of India chose that clan name that was mentioned in the Vedas to name the land of the Bharat, or Bharata,
okay.
the land of the clan of Bharat, who was an ancient king in India.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was actually named after that clan.
Okay, let's see if there are any callers.
622-3937, 622 eyes. Caller, good afternoon. Caller?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to I-95.
We are speaking to Dr. Visham
thank you.
Bhimull, a language enthusiast.
That's the correct term.
Thank you very much. Could the doctor say whether any of the sounds, like anything he knows, Chai Chagi,
Chai Jagadish Hare?
Sa Apandila Ghan Ki, Sa Chane Wali Gana Hai. Does that sound like anything, you know?
Yeah, that's Hindustani.
That's from a song, is it? What does it mean?
What, is this from a song? Which song?
I don't know. It's something I heard like age maybe 10, 12.
You have to say it over again, but slowly.
Chai Chagi Tumilun Ki,
Uh-huh.
Sapanila Ghan Ki, Sa Chane Wali Gana Hai.
Uh-huh.
That sounds like something Ricky Jai sang.
This is before Ricky Jai is 74 years old.
Okay, but what's the name of the song?
I don't know.
I don't know. But
I
I do remember
Holy Lata Mangeshkar again, so-
that verse was very popular because it's very
Thank you.
rhythmic.
Thank-
Very rhythmic
Thanks,
verse.
caller.
I do remember it. Listen, I remember
Still
it.
don't know the meaning.
But are you understanding the words
I
that you say?
understand, yeah, Jane Wali,
Yeah, that's
guys,
what I wanted
one who
to
goes
tell
to
me.
sing.
She wants to know what it means. From
At least close. What
Right, we have
can you
to
pull out of it?
say- well, it's saying something about going to sing. Just repeat it one more time.
Jai from the beginning.
Slowly.
Jai Chaki Tumilun Ki.
Alright, so come O world, let's meet. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Sa Apandila Ghan Ki,
Yeah,
Chane
on the special.
Wali
Uh-huh.
Gana Hai.
Uh-huh.
Kahe Chalake.
Uh-huh.
Naha Kakali.
Uh-huh.
Paradesiya Balam.
Paradesi. Okay, yeah, it's the, so it's actually a woman singing about a beloved who went to Pardes. Pardes means not foreign, but in India we have different districts.
A place.
Yeah. And singing to a beloved to come back, the one who went away. Singing the song. Yeah.
Oh, come back to
All
me,
right,
come back to
thank
me.
you. At age 74, I have an idea what
But you know all the time.
Well, you besides English, you speak Patois?
No, I don't. Just, where you're going, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But she seems to have spoken those words pretty well.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling. Thanks for calling. Caller, good afternoon.
Hello, hi, good afternoon.
Yes, welcome.
Hi, welcome. I wanted a number for him because they all get there because I would like to have some classes with him. I don't know if he can leave his name and
I could say it on air, yeah, because it's the same number for Caribbean Hindustani. 778
778
2980.
2980.
80,
And
yeah.
because I have to catch up on some of my soaps now.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the soap Badai.
Yeah.
Sapna Badul Kai Badai.
Yeah, my mom watches it.
Okay, well, I have to translate some of the Hindu languages.
Sure.
So I'll contact you for sure.
No problem.
That number again, 778.
778 2980.
Yeah. Caller on the line, good afternoon.
Caller, good afternoon. Welcome. Caller? Are you there? Caller, welcome. I95. Caller, welcome. I95.
Hey, I was listening to your show on the radio and I had to stop and kind of pause. Thank you very much, I95. Thank you for putting this on the radio and for introducing the deep culture of Trinidad to the whole country. We have to be one country and embrace Hinduism and Africanism and everything else. I want to say something here. I want to ask him a question because you're talking about linguistic and language. And I feel like a lot of the Hinduism and Indian Sanskrit language that was interpreted into English by the British colonialists, they say a lot of it was kind of biased and it was kind of, it kind of did the same thing what did it to African culture in Africa because Africa had a deep culture and the British did the same thing in destroying the language and the identity. But at least Hinduism had some thread. But I'm going to take a new twist on this, and I'm going to ask you something because we're talking about language, and language is changing, because we live in the Caribbean and the Caribbean, and because we have such a deep culture rich with Portuguese, which in India was influenced by the Portuguese, and we were, and Cuba and all the other islands were, by the European influence who brought us here. I feel like Hinduism and the language needs to be redefined, and we could change this language into our own culture and use our own kind of linguistics to kind of like the way Puerto Ricans speak Spanish. They don't really speak the real Spanish. They kind of speak the language of the streets. But I feel like that is what we need to do instead of going back to the old days and bringing back those deep values that divided us because of the untouchables and class and race. But I just wanted to share that with you, and I think Hinduism should be open to everybody. It shouldn't just be a race. It should be a philosophy of life. Same thing with Christianity and any other religion. But I-95, you go, brothers, you go. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Calling. Should we be still speaking about language of the streets? Meaning, I'm speaking now because of the power relations.
I noted his expression, and he was going to take up on
I
that.
didn't even look at his
He was
expression.
going to take
but
up on that.
the politics.
It was a language. It's a language.
Whoever is the dominant culture, they determine what is the standard.
Okay, let's go back to England after the Battle of Hastings. Anglo-Saxon was the language of the street, and Norman French was the language of the aristocracy. So if you spoke Norman French, then you would seem to be educated and upper class. But if you spoke Anglo-Saxon, well, you were a peasant. But where is English today? Does the Queen speak it? So it means that languages are ever-evolving, dynamic, living thing, and it starts from the grassroots. So that every aspect of what is the classical language would have started at a grassroots area. It just moves up the ladder. And that is economically, politically, and socially.
Militarily.
Oh, yes, that is true, but I still insist the word is Caribbean, and it's not Caribbean.
Well, leisure or leisure?
Right, but the American influence is taking over.
So I'm going back into Hindi.
It is Caribbean.
So that there are a lot of variants.
It is Caribbean.
Variants of words. So that the word for spring from Sanskrit is vasant. You still say vasant.
Vasant Bharat again.
So
Vasant again.
It means spring. It means spring.
So he's a spring Indian.
That's but chicken.
But there's a variant where the V becomes ba, so it's basant. But you could say either or, right? Again, that's how language is. It changes over time.
Let's take another call. Caller, good afternoon.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon.
Roger, hello to the guest here.
Yeah.
I just missed out the number. Can you repeat it for the guest? Sorry, I didn't get it.
778
778
29 80.
80. And the name?
Well, that's the number for Caribbean Hindustani. So when you call, whatever information you need to get, you just ask.
So like words like bandhania is Hindu.
Yeah, Hindi. I mean
Hindi.
yeah. So bandhania, there's two, dhania and bandhania, right?
Oh, there are two words.
Yeah, one.
Okay.
Yeah, bandhan. The name slipped me for now. There's this seed that my grandmother used to season. That's the dhania, right?
Okay.
And bandhania, ban is forest. Dhania is the dhania, which is the same. The English name slipped me. It's interesting how I know the Hindi name for it and not the English name.
Huh? You Shadabani thing you talking
Yeah,
about?
Shadabani is patwa. But I try to get the English
Cilantro is what?
Culantro is similar to
the similar seasoning.
But, yeah.
So it's culantro and it's cilantro. It's two different things.
Okay.
So we have different Hindi names for them.
Yes,
so
back to bandhania.
bandhania is what is found in the forest, or the dhania or variety found in the forest. So it's a Hindi word. That word doesn't occur in Hindi. It only occurs in Bhojpuri, because that was a seasoning that was native to that particular area. They know dhania, and dhania you'd find in a dictionary, but not bandhania.
So what would that do you know what the name of that plant be called?
I looked it up and I can't remember, and I did a post on it, but I just know it by the Hindustani name.
What is the Hindustani name?
Which one? Bandhania?
Bandhania.
Yeah, bandhania.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, I see.
Bandhania. When I went to Suriname, though, they know dhania, not the bandhania, which is very interesting.
They banned the dhania.
Yes, it went to the bun. But this is important to note. Certain expression I would have grown up with my grandmother using when I learned modern standard Hindi, it doesn't exist in that language. So that, again, this is an example. There are certain words that we know as Trinidad Bhojpuri, words that came from India, that doesn't exist in modern standard Hindi. Also, there are words that of a remnant of an older Hindustani in our Trinidad Bhojpuri.
So could you give me some more examples of words commonly used in
I
Trinidad?
will give expressions
yes.
because I want to show you the difference between Trinidad Bhojpuri and modern standard Hindi, right? So, all right. We said aap kaise hai, right? Or just kaise hai. But my grandparents would say
bani.
Yeah.
So which is kaise bani?
Kaise means how. Yeah. So
kaise bani.
Aap kaise, how are you? So kaise bani is to make, how will you make?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But they would say kaisan hal. Kaisan hal. Kaisan hal is not Hindi. Kaisan hal is Bhojpuri. Okay, so that's how are you in Trinidad Bhojpuri. Right? I don't know what other expressions you want.
Well, no, that now makes sense. Look, kaise bani, palori in a chutney. How do you make palori?
No, it says kaise bani, how will you make? Kaise bani, palori bina chutney. Palori without chutney, kaise bani? How will you make it?
Right. How do
so in other words, you can't make palori without chutney.
Ah, okay, right.
That's what it says.
But he said his grandmother doing his aji.
Nani.
Nani, is it Mausi, Bauji? Who?
So, that we could go through that. That's very interesting.
Go through.
Okay, so the names for relatives in Hindi, Hindustani is more scientific than English. You tend to find words on the mother side, ma, with ma, mausi, mausa, and words on the father side with pa, pua, pupa. And that comes from the older Indo-European. So in Latin you find the same thing as well. It's scientific in naming, right? Nana, nani is maternal grandmother and grandfather. Aja, aji is paternal grandmother and grandfather. Mausi, ma, mother, sister. Mausi's husband is mausa. Your father's sister is pua, and her husband is pupa. So,
And Masarubai.
Sarubai is
It's two brothers.
no
What is
your
that?
wife's
Sisters.
husband.
Two brothers-in-law.
yeah.
Same sisters.
Yeah.
Sisters.
So
Okay.
it tells on which side of the family it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's different in Hindi though. What we
Yeah.
call the names in Trinidad. For instance, we say Aja, Aji, but in Hindi they say Dada, Dadi.
Mhm.
So there's some contextual or differences that is unique to Trinidad Bhojpuri as opposed to.
I guess as this is like English, French, German, we Trinidadianize it in a way.
And there's a lot. Okay, so there's in Trinidad Bhojpuri there's a lot of English and Patwa words. So for instance, so ke upar means on top. Ke upar, right? So the word they use for table in Trinidad and Hindustani is table. So my nani would say table wa ke upar, on top of the table. Kitchen wa ke behind the kitchen.
Right.
So there's a lot of English words as well as Patwa words too.
And you know, some places you see the language being part of today's language in Trinidad and Tobago. It would be the foods like roti, pulori, whatever, sahina, and so on. In fact, I was down Caroni Savannah Road some years ago, and this elderly man was saying that it was so funny to him that his great-granddaughter was asking, what is the Hindu word for roti? Roti is now part of the language.
Yeah,
and this little 9-year-old couldn't distinguish that. She didn't know the origin because it's part of her language.
Yeah, it's actually part of Trinidad English Creole.
Yeah, it has become part of.
Another expression is using Trinidad English Creole. I don't know how to do this. Means I can't do it. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you said in Hindustani, right? Well, this is Trinidad Bhojpuri, so it'll be na jani kapra dhoye. I don't know how to wash clothes. Na jane pakawe. I don't know how to cook. So
you're talking about the woman today?
I didn't say anything. I just give an example.
Let me talk about yourself, boy. Don't put me in that.
Don't put doctor in trouble. Take a call. Caller, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Oh, you have me waiting so much on the phone.
No, because it was worth the wait.
Yes. तुम्हारा नाम है the person who is speaking है. तुम्हारा नाम क्या है?
Oh, मेरा नाम विशम है और आपका नाम क्या है?
I wouldn't say that on the radio. You know that so certain words that are still used in Trinidad are like chonki and punji,
Yeah.
tawa,
Chunky.
seal, yes, haldi, lorha, yes. You know those words?
Yeah, खूब जानीला.
Yes, man, yes. Have you seen the film Nadia Ki Par?
No, I can't remember what era it's from. So, but I heard
Well,
of it.
if you want to hear Bhojpuri, I would like you to look at that film Nadia Ki Par, which was filmed in Bhojpur, India. Bhojpur, yes.
हम जरूर देखब.
Dekha, you mean dekhi to see?
अरे तो देखब मतलब देखूंगा.
You think that I can speak so much Hindi? You think I can speak Bhojpuri?
Yeah, but मैं यहाँ हूँ हिंदी सीखने के लिए.
You find so?
Does that mean you don't understand?
No, I understand a little bit.
No, she understands.
Now, if I'm looking at a Hindi film and there is no English subtitles, I can pick up the film very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I want to tell you.
Okay.
But if my grandparents were speaking Bhojpuri, I would understand what they're saying.
Okay.
But to speak it,
Yeah.
I would not be able to say it. Speak it.
That's
You understand? Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up.
Yes, yes. Okay then.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Bhimull, you're in luck because Dr. Ferraro won't be able to make it.
Okay.
So we get some more time. Now, today is Diwali. Traditionally, we say Divali, but it's spelled with a V, Divali. What's up? Is it spelled with a W or a V, or is the pronunciation being standardized? The spelling being standardized?
Okay, so va and wa is a gliding vowel essentially. To the Indian A or the Hindustani A is the same. So it's the same letter you would write for both. So that's the standard spelling there. Also, saying it as va or wa depends on which region of India you come from. Because indentured laborers would have pronounced it as wa. As va. I've noticed in the standard spelling in Trinidad is with a V.
Yes, the standard spelling.
But in Europe and in the US and Canada, it's spelled with a W. For all intents and purposes, to spell that, it's the same letter. And it sounds the same, so it's like different vernaculars of same.
So there's no right or wrong?
No, either is correct.
Okay.
So therefore, if I'm a media house, I can standardize my spelling to V, and the next media house can standardize the spelling to W, and it's perfectly all right and acceptable.
Yeah, because if you look at the dictionary, they actually put variant. So they put D-A-W-A-L-I, variant, D-A-V, and they put the V.
So the one with the V is a variant, but the W is the correct one?
Okay, so we do have correctness in language, right?
Language in use. Language in use.
Language in use is exactly, especially when we have to import a word from one language into the more authoritative standard one. Then you would have two different ways. No way is wrong. Both are right. Or the two accepted standards for that one word.
But it appears that that the W is being used more widely.
Internationally, I find that, yes. Because whenever on my social media feed would get greetings for Diwali from outside of Trinidad, it will be spelled with a W. But in Trinidad, it is with a V.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like Diwali. That W sound to my ear, it sounds like.
Now you
Diwali.
could say, okay, so the word for God in Hindi is Deva. Va. You could say Va, but my grandpa said Dev, like Bas Dev, right? So that Va and Va is actually the same letter.
Okay, let's take another call. Caller, good afternoon. Caller?
Yeah, good afternoon to the panel.
Welcome to I-95.
Yes, good afternoon to all on the panel. Yeah, what happened is like in the old time days, you hear the songs from India, right? They used to call it the songs from India. But the announcer was so like Hindi song or Hindi film or what and so, but later on in life you realize it's Urdu. I came on late on the program, so I don't know if one of the presenter there, he spoke about the Urdu language in India.
Great point.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. My response will be very controversial because I don't belong to Pakistan or India, so I'll give an outside experience. For all intents and purposes, Urdu and Hindi is the same language. It's not a different language.
Oh my gosh. He's a revolutionary.
Hindustani was the language it was known as. Mahatma Gandhi wanted it to keep it as Hindustani and not define it as either, because to call it Hindi or to call it Urdu would divide people. So, just like you have American English and you have English and American English and British as standards, so it is seen as Urdu and Hindi would be the two standards of Hindustani present day. Conversationally the same language. If I say Aapka naam kya hai, that's Urdu as well as Hindi. But when you go into the academia of it, then it starts to separate. Where that Urdu is written in Nazdalik or Urdu script, which is Arabic, and Hindi is written in Devanagari script. And then when you would speak formal Urdu or formal Hindi, you use more Sanskrit words in Hindi and you use more Perso-Arabic words in Urdu. But I could speak Hindi with a Pakistani and we have a normal conversation, just like an American could speak with a British person, because it's the same language.
Somebody online says, in common parlance, Urdu is merely regarded as a highbrow version of the common tongue in northern India.
No. Okay, so I'll just look at this history of Hindustani. Before the Britishers came, it was known as Hindavi or Dillavi Hindustani. The Britishers came and set up the Fort William College, and they utilized the Kariboli dialect of Hindustani, which is in Delhi, as the form they documented, and that's what they taught their people they brought to work from Britain in India. But what they did, they hired the intellectuals who came up with the material was a Pandit as well as a Miya, Muslim priest. And they devised utilizing both Sanskrit as well as Perso-Arabic words to kind of reinvent the vocabulary of the language. It's a political move. Actually, modern standard Hindi or Urdu is a systematized synthetic language. It's not a living language in the sense. It's, the spoken language or the language of poetry is never in these two, usually. It's only for administration. If you look at most of the Bollywood movies, they sell them in modern standard Hindi as per. They're actually more of the regional variety to give some sort of backstory to the movie. So in India they would say yes, Urdu is a hybridized version. In Pakistan they would say no, Hindi is the hybridized version. Like that demonstrates the religio-political divide. Linguistically, it's the same language.
The
division is just religio-political.
Speaking to status and so on.
Yeah.
Foods that came, which is part of communication,
Yeah.
which is part of culture. The foods that came to Trinidad and in the Caribbean tend to be very spicy and so on. And of course, the Trinidad and Tobago, we have acquired that taste. But
Yeah.
sometimes you see a restaurant popping up
Yeah.
that is supposed to be selling authentic Indian,
Quote
coming
unquote-
from
quote unquote
India
authentic.
type of menus and so on, which our palate is not accustomed to. It's a bit off to us. What accounts for that? Now, what I've heard, and tell me if this is correct, that those who came, because they came from the lower socioeconomic groups, I'm talking the bulk migration, their way of preserving foods and so on, they did not have access to like refrigerators and that sort of thing. So they would have had to use salts and different seasonings to preserve. And therefore, when they came, they are the common cooks that landed. And therefore, that explains why we have this heavy, spicy type of food. Because if, again, the elite had come with their fridges and so on, the cooking, the food may have been different.
Okay, I'll just use sada roti. You know sada roti?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Know what sada means?
Roti.
No, sada means plain.
Plain
It's an
roti.
adjective. It
Okay.
describes the roti. Sada roti, plain roti.
Okay.
Because you have
Good.
toasty roti, you have paratha roti,
pepper
and so on.
roti,
Sada,
paratha.
admi means man. Sada admi, a simple man.
Okay,
So
okay,
sada
okay.
actually means plain or simple. So it means that yes, it's the everyday bread,
Mhm.
right? Plain and simple. That is made with white flour. That's not found in India.
Mhm.
That was actually developed on the ships from India because they gave them white flour then. They never saw white flour before that. As a matter of fact, the word for flour in Trinidad Bhojpuri is pulawa, which is
Pulawa.
flour.
Pulori.
Yeah, pulawa. Because in Bhojpuri you can't say fa, you have to say pa. So flour becomes pulawa, right? And this was from Peggy Mohan. I remember she had mentioned that. Is because of the access to what they had. So one is when they came to Trinidad, they had rations. They probably didn't have all the spices they were accustomed to having. Yes, they did bring plants. So some of the seasonings that they would have brought still here today. Just like they are descendants from India, those seasonings are descendants from plants that came from India. But the rations, they had one. The region they came from, the Bhojpuri region, now that's not the popular cuisine in India. Right? Again, just like language, politics and economy determines even what the palate is, or what is savoir-faire, or what is delicious. So, the region they came from, and two, the rations that were available, ultimately were two major factors that were responsible for the evolution of what we know as Indo-Trinidadian cuisine. Right? But they still have remnants of it, because when I do post pictures of chokha, right, aloo chokha, baigan chokha, they have that in the UP Bihar region. Actually, chokha is not general Indian, it actually belongs to the UP Bihar region. Yeah, chokha, that word. Tarkari is more general, because all of India uses the word tarkari. We know that's dal curry in Trinidad,
curry,
right?
yeah.
But the actual word is tarkari, right? So, I mean, the evolution were multiple factors, but this was the major one. One is the region they came from in India, and two is the what was available to them, and also the rations that they would have gotten, which may not have necessarily come from India.
So you can also call. Caller, good afternoon. Caller, please lower the volume. Caller.
Hello, hi.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to I-95.
Hi, welcome. The guest said, what was the meaning or the translation or the interpretation of sada in local, in Hindi
Okay,
language?
so the word sada exists in Bhojpuri and Hindi. Bhojpuri and Hindi, just like Portuguese and Spanish, share a
Okay,
huge
so
vocabulary.
it-
But in both languages, it means plain or simple.
Okay, so what the S stands for and the split in syllables,
What do you mean? I don't understand the question.
like sada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what does it stand for, like in the Hindi?
I mean, if
So we
it's
know the
two
whole
words
word
joining.
means
Oh no, it
one
is
thing,
not.
right?
Is not a compound. It actually comes from a word from a prakrit, so it's not like the joining of two words. I understand what you mean. Like vinash means destructive, avinash means indestructible. But yes, you have the joining, but that is a one word by itself that evolved from a one single word from prakrit.
Okay.
Actually, not Prakrit. It comes from Persian.
Right. So the whole word means simple bread.
It's adjective, and in Hindi, just like in Spanish, we agree with some grammar here. We agree with the gender of the noun. So rarely in Shuddh Hindi or modern Hindi, in Bhojpuri, you don't have any agreement. It just should be Sadi Roti. The da becomes E, feminine. Right? Sada Admi. Sade Admi means simple men. So it conjugates and changes according to the noun. But in correct Trinidad Bhojpuri, it's Sada Roti. Sada means plain. Ana expression, Sida Sada, plain and simple.
Since we're discussing food so much.
Thanks for calling.
Since we're discussing food so much, I noticed on Facebook around Diwali time, lots of non-Hindus and, shall we say, non-Indians who appreciate the Indian cuisine send out messages, if I have any Hindu friends out there, remember me and pass me some roti and so on and so on. Is that good manners? Is that do Hindus take offense that they only recognize around Diwali time for some free food?
I will read something that I wrote on that same thing, because I know when I came in the studio, that was the first thing you mentioned to me, right? Okay, so this is something I'll post on Facebook later, but I said, growing up as an Indo-Trinidad, and I found that one of the easiest ways to connect with Indo-Caribbean culture was through food. Being involved in preparing and partaking of Indo-Caribbean food was one of the ways in connecting with my Indo-Caribbean heritage. In general, it is an effective way that helped me understand and appreciate my heritage and where my ancestors came from. So if it is that important to me, then I have no problem of sharing that cultural heritage to others through food. And you have to remember, food is not just to sustain us and give us energy. It is a context of conversation and exchanging ideas. So it goes together, just like smell and taste.
Yes, but people don't say, yes, look at you, she only come by me today because of Diwali and she wants some free roti.
But the importance of sharing food.
No, I don't know about that.
That's probably his friend.
Apparently.
No, I'm just wondering. I'm not saying it happens. I'm just asking the question.
I mean, honestly, my own personal experience, because I'm also with NCIC, and it's actually, it's part of PR and what Indian culture is. So, I mean, the more we could share, whether it be food or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to be food. Even if it's food, it's fine. I think I'm sharing a part of who I am. And if you ask, I would be happy to. And look at it as a way of goodwill, not essentially that the person is greedy.
Speaking about food, there's a wonder food that has been that emerged recently, last couple of years. Saijan. I eat Saijan bhaji many times. And I met a lady, a professor from India, and she said, nothing waste on the Saijan tree.
What is
the Saijan tree? What is Saijan?
I don't know.
Moringa.
Oh, moringa. Okay.
Yeah, that's a tree. People eat it.
You cook it.
Yeah, Saijan, it's a gourd.
I know people boil the leaves to make tea.
Moringa, yeah. But that's a recent phenomenon. Saijan was one of the plants that was brought from India by native laborers, and it was part of the garden. Saijan, the fruit is a gourd, and you curry it. Right, it's related to jingi in a bit, but jingi is similar. You have lauki, which is the bigger one. Then you have saijan and you have jingi. So this is long gourds, and you curry it. So you make tarkari.
So it's the gourds that you cook, not the leaves.
No, you use the leaves too. The leaves bhaji.
Yeah.
So bhaji means greens essentially, or vegetable. Yeah. So that you have different kinds of bhaji. For instance, dashin is one bhaji. Right. You have poi, you have chaurai, and all this. But you also have saijan bhaji because you take the leaves and you cook it. People make it with dal. They actually boil it in the dal.
As a flavoring.
Yeah, it's a flavoring, and as well sometimes in dal, when you taste it, to have some sort of vegetable or solid stuff in it, actually it makes it more appetizing.
Texture.
Yeah, texture. That's the word.
Right. But what is the name of the leaf again? The tree again, and they call it like curry leaf.
Karapule.
Karapule.
No, I want to introduce some things here.
Karapule?
Yeah. Moringa is a Tamil word. So it comes from Tamil, which is a separate language completely different from Hindi or Hindustani, and Karapule is a Tamil word. So that because remember 10% of the Indian laborers that came in the first phase were from Tamil Nadu, former Madras. So that a lot of the vocabulary from Tamil did come into Trinidad Hindustani Bhojpuri. So words like those 2 examples you give actually are Tamil words that exist in Trinidad Bhojpuri.
Karapule.
Yeah.
Karapule, and what's the other word?
Moringa.
Saijan.
Saijan is a Hindustani word.
Opalgar. Have you ever heard of him? Opalgar? Which is when you take a stick, put the onion and garlic thing, and you roast it, and then you crush it with pepper.
I'll have to check that one.
That's probably a Corova road.
So it's probably a skewer.
A skewer, right? A skewer, but you roast all the seasonings.
No, I have to be very careful because
Opalgar is the term the guys use.
No. But what I want to say is that because the French Creole and East Indian community grew together, there are vague lines in between sometimes what is Hindustani and what is
Creole,
Bhojpuri.
French Creole.
Because when I started the class for Patwa, one guy came in and said, Kaisan hal? And he was like, well, that's all the Patwa I know. And I was like, that's not Patwa. No, but that's a common story, right?
Yeah.
Even if...
but is that French or English Patwa? It might be can we describe it as Hindi Patwa?
Yes, you could, because I'm now going to make the other point is that the word for Sunday in Trinidad Bhojpuri is Dimas, comes from Dimash in French. Right? And I heard...
Let's say that again.
The word for Sunday, or one of the words used, at least in my interviews and Dr. Mohan's, is Dimas. It means...
Spell it.
Dimas.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's a loan
similar
word
to
from,
Dimanche.
It came it's a loan. It actually was borrowed from French Creole into Hindustani.
Gotcha.
And the other word for factory is moulin, which comes from moulin in French. So there are a substantial amount of French Creole words in Caribbean Hindustani. As I would assume, there are a lot of words in Patwa from Hindustani. The Trinidad Bhojpuri word for tomato is damadol. That's found nowhere else in the diaspora. In Patwa, it's damados. Tomatoes.
Oh,
so it sounds similar. So we were thinking, well, then no, it's probably borrowed from Patwa into Hindu. Because when I was doing my research, damadol is not used in India or Suriname or Guyana for tomatoes. And I grew up with damadol wake chokha, which is tomatoes chokha.
Has that ever been tested, disputed by any other people, linguists?
You mean the damadol, or just in general?
In general, much of the things that you're saying today.
Well, most of the stuff I say based on research by Peggy Mohan. She would have said it in the thesis, so she would have looked at its etymology. The damadol she didn't record it. Only recently I had asked if it's possible, could it be of Bhojpuri origin, or if it actually came from Patwa. Namdi Hodge, who teaches Patwa, I spoke to him, and he thought that the Patwa word came from damadol, when it seems that it went the other way. So that one, no, more research needs to be done in that. But there are established words that came from French Creole into in Trinidad Bhojpuri and vice versa. That established in the documentation.
I'm taking a risk here. Ulukepatal.
Ulukepatta, yeah. Okay, that's okay. I can't give you the exact equivalent on the radio station.
Close to. Fool.
Okay, so Ulu means owl. Ulu means owl. In our English tradition, owl is seen to be smart. So to call an owl is a compliment. But Ulu is seen to be stupid in the Eastern Indian perspective. So Ulu, even though it means owl, it could also mean a fool, right? Ulu ke patta. Patta means a son. Son. So the son of a fool. It means that. I mean, you could see which equivalent comes in English, but Ulu ke patta is basically calling person a fool or the son of a fool. So it's an insult.
Yeah. Sadly, that's what they call one of the guys I know. They go,
yeah. But I remember doing an interview with that old man. He died now, and he was saying, no jawan log para uluba. They say these young people these days are fools.
No, see, I'm tempted to ask him, are there any Bhojpuri curse words?
No,
I can't ask him because he can't say it on the air.
I remember an episode of Conan on TV, and he had a Spanish guy. And the Spanish guy said, well, I could probably curse in Spanish, they wouldn't know what it means. And I actually knew that. He said, I can't say that. He said, the producer speaks Spanish, so he knows what it means.
Let's take a call.
But there are.
Yeah.
Of course, there are.
Well, I mean, you know.
There was a very rude song I posted once. It wasn't, I remember, and when you listen to the words, it spoke about things, and I was like, okay, I really have to take this off.
Pikari, what is when the women dance the Friday night? only women before the wedding, wedding night.
Well, the night is Matikor.
Matikor night, boy. That's a night of.
What does that word mean?
That's a night of
so
naughtiness.
this is a compound, right? In Suriname, they say Matikorwa. Mati means dirt, Mati.
Oh.
And kor means digging. It's a noun, right? Kore means to dig. So Matikor means literally digging of the dirt. That's the ritual. So what they do on that night is the women go out. The sister would usually have a tree with whatever they have to use for the ritual. They'll go to an area where there's running water. Well, I mean, in long time there's river, right? Now they go by a standpipe because the river is not place. So they would dig the dirt, and I think the mantra says, so basically now invoking the goddess of the earth, which represents fertility. To now bless the couple with fertility and good offspring. They would take that and then they'll carry it back to the house, and they would put that on the altar. We call it a bedi, right? And put it to form the bedi, which would now form the place where we would do the ritual and prayers for the marriage ceremony.
So where does bygone come in?
Well, now we go back to food.
No. I talk about part of the dance ritual.
No, let's do.
Let's take a call.
Okay.
Call.
Bringing an Indian emoji into the thing.
Yes. Kenna. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. There is a song on YouTube. Let's start with Dulaha Ki Maya. You ever heard that song?
Okay, yeah, that was sung by Sundar Popo.
No.
Which one?
No. Go back. It's sung somewhere. The person Hindi is very good, and that person Hindi is excellent. No. Go right.
A local song?
It is a song. No, Dulaha Ki Maya. That is not the song by Sundar Popo. It was sung somewhere, understand, in the 1960s. It is in fluent Hindi.
You have to
All
do my best singer.
Yes, okay. You will see how much. Yes, that has real cuss word in it. Anybody want to hear cuss word? But in the film Slumdog Millionaire, do you know that had plenty cussing in it?
Yeah.
Really?
There's real cussing in it.
Yeah, it wasn't PG-13. I think it was.
Yes, Slumdog Millionaire, real cussing in it. But you could go on YouTube and watch Dulha Ki Maya. You could see it.
I could probably give maybe radio-worthy expressions. Yeah.
Yes, I know. The song is really dirty. Because I remember my aunt was getting married and they were playing that song and they took the record and broke the record.
So the style of the song is called a gali.
Gari
in Bhojpuri, it means insult or pikong, essentially. What happens usually in the wedding time is that members of family would shoot pikong at each other, insults that have sexual slurs, and that's very common in the Bhojpuri tradition. And the style is called gari. I mean, there's one song where it's the same type of song, but it's not rude. This by Ashnis goes, More gari suno Maharaj, Hey Dulhi Ramalala. Oh Dulha, listen to my insult.
I know that song.
Yeah, that's by Drupati from Suriname, but written by Ashni.
But I want you to listen to the real one. But you can't even play that on the radio. Well, go on YouTube.
What I say play on the radio is I'm not sure, and somebody doesn't understand what it is the song
is saying. But I understand that very good.
Okay. You speak Bhojpuri or Hindi?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I understand a little Bhojpuri.
Jane batti aawe Hindustani?
A little bit.
Tani mani. Jane batti aawe, tani mani bole na?
Tani mani?
Chotti.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Tani mani?
And I have no money on me.
Tani mani means a little bit. Sala, which is the same as Sarubai. They use that and say, Sala, whatever. So it's usually to call that relative as an insult, so they say that. And Battamiz, this is Hindi, this is not Bhojpuri. Battamiz means ill-mannered person. So like when a child is rude, the mother will say, Arey, Battamiz, chup! Shut up, you insolent, whatever. I can't remember. That's all I can remember now. But that's ones that I could use on the radio.
Say that again. Shut up, you insolent.
Battamiz. Arey, Battamiz, chup raho.
Good afternoon, caller.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. I wanted to know if
if you could get like the old soap, you know, like the old Badai Bollywood type soaps, right? Can you get them like online on YouTube?
Yeah, you could go and search for them.
Even though the series has ended?
Yes, I think they're available on YouTube, and I think if you go to the station that actually produces it, they usually would have the episodes you could either download or look at online, streaming.
Okay, because I think CNT, you know, they had the old soaps, you know, but I think it's intellectually property.
I think if you go and search for the names, you would probably see websites where you could actually stream or download it.
Okay, but even if we don't have the English subtitle, could there be any alternative way that you could troubleshoot that issue and get
learn Hindi.
subtitle?
Learn Hindi?
Okay.
No easier way.
Right. Well, that's why I'm going to call you, right?
Yeah, sure. I know your number, right?
So
7.
What's your title again, so I can ask the name?
You could say Visham. That's my first name.
His name is Dr. Visham Bhimull.
Yeah.
Visham Bhimull.
Bhimull. Bhimull.
Visham.
Yeah, Visham. Visham.
Visham. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
You know, the culture of Trinidad and Tobago from many, many years ago via Bollywood and the powerful influence that has had. And you hear people speaking about the media via mass media and movies and so on. And I remember I lived opposite a fellow called Suraj Sugrim. I don't know if you know that name. He would have been a Bina Sangeet Orchestra,
okay.
which would have been a band in them days. I don't know if they still survive now. But he died many years ago. And through him, they were neighbors, literally neighbors next door. And I remember going across by them when they were practicing, you know, what do you call it, the harmonium?
Harmonium, yeah.
And then, and I remember hearing songs like Sholay. And Chalte me. You know Chalte? Chalte?
Yeah. I know it.
You heard of it? What is your age? Less than 40. Less than Chalte.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Ricky Jai? No.
Holy Lata Mangeshkar, come on, when I was maybe about 10 years old. I was still in primary school.
Surely.
But we've got only time for a final call.
Yeah. Let's. Caller, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would like to ask the gentleman there, what's the meaning of the word Baris ke Mahina?
Barish ke Mahina means the month of rain.
And what follow that?
You mean in what? In the order of season?
How you say like January, February, March?
Oh, Savan.
No, I learned that 85 years ago when I was going to a Hindi school. I was 6 years old. And so the Baris ke Mahina Magh, Phagun, Chais, Baisakh.
Ah, that's a month in Hindi. Yeah, that's a month in Hindi. Yep.
And the Mas ke Din.
Yeah.
85 years ago when you were 6 years old, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I am African, you know.
Okay.
91.
But I went to a Hindu school.
Right. What's your age? What's your age? If you don't mind me asking.
In Kapichaima.
How old are you? 91?
91.
So you speak Patwa?
Huh?
You could understand Patwa, speak Patwa?
Patwa?
Yeah.
No, my mother used to speak it, but
okay.
I more concentrate on the Hindi.
Okay.
Like they would teach you the 10 commandments, like honor your mother and your father. Apne mata pita se adar kar.
Somebody told me these commandments. It was my uncle he had called. I remember that.
Huh?
Yeah, I know those. Yeah.
And the Mas ke Din.
Yeah, the Mas ke Din.
Itwar, Sumar, Mangal, Bodh, Dipe, Sukh, Shanichar.
Yeah, that's the days of the week in Bhojpuri.
Yeah, well, I remember that I was taught that when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
Wow. No, of 91, and I still remember it.
You remind me of my grandmother because she used to say the same thing.
And the district that I came from, in Kapichaima, well, I went Saibala and wedding and things like that. They were the shape here, they couldn't tell whether it was African.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Thanks for calling, sir. What a beautiful blessing.
Yes, it was a great way to spend our Diwali afternoon. You didn't bring any roti and stuff, but
I find you keep asking for
But,
invitation.
I'm going to the beach after.
we enjoyed the language lessons. Thank you very much to all our loyal listeners for participating in the discussion today, and perhaps Dr. Bhimull, you can make a good farewell statement.
Well, आप सभी को शुभ दिवाली और धन्यवाद मौका देने के लिए यहाँ आने के.
And translation.
Oh, I wish everybody happy Diwali and thanks for the opportunity to come here today. And आशा है कि एक दिन ज़रूर आऊँगा इस radio station पे. And hopefully I'll come back one day and we'll do the same.
Happy Diwali, everyone.
The number one name in talk, I95.5 FM Talk, Trinidad and Tobago.
When you are in the service of your fellow human beings, you are in the service of God. When someone takes an oath to serve his or her country, this oath must be taken seriously. This Sunday on Eye on Dependency, Garth and Natasha welcome Commissioner of Prisons, Jared Wilson.
3 to 5 p.m.
After 35 plus years of selfless service to country, were his expectations met? What has he accomplished during his tenure? And what are his hopes and dreams for the men, women, and the institutions he is about to bid farewell to? You don't want to miss part 1 of this conversation with Commissioner of Prisons, Jared Wilson. This Sunday
from 3 to 5 p.m.
exclusively on I95.5 FM. Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography, is sponsored by the Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security. Tell someone.
Eye on Dependency will be heard today at a new time from 3 to 5 p.m.
Smoking makes your teeth yellow, gives you bad breath, and can even kill you. And if you're pregnant or have small children, you're putting them at risk too. Remember, smoking is not safe, and so too secondhand smoke.
That was a public service announcement brought to you by I95.5 FM.
When you are in the service of your fellow human beings, you are in the service of God. When someone takes an oath to serve his or her country, this oath must be taken seriously. This Sunday on Eye on Dependency, Garth and Natasha welcome Commissioner of Prisons, Jared Wilson.
3 to 5 p.m.
After 35 plus years of selfless service to country, were his expectations met? What has he accomplished?